Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto was raised by Kakashi? Part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. It was October 10th and it would forever be known as the darkest day in the history of the ninja village of the Hidden Leaf. It was the day the dreaded nine-tailed fox demon attacked their land and their village. It was a huge monster, its red chakra could be seen and felt by people over a mile away. The ninjas that survived the battle would still be able to tell how they could feel the killer intent of the giant fox demon, how it felt like a giant weight crushing them. But they had to protect their village, and so they fought on. Many died in that battle, attacks against the demon were brushed aside, as though they were nothing. Scores of ninjas died when it counterattacked. It was a pure nightmare, that battle that night. Many thought that it was the end of things. That they would all die, and then it would go on and attack their village, killing everyone they held dear. But it was their leader, the fourth Hokage, a man named Minato Namikaze, that ended it all. There was only one thing he could do. At that moment he stood on the mountain looking over the battle. He held a small bundle in his arms. The man was tall with yellow spiky hair and blue eyes as he looked on with a great sadness in his heart. The bundle in his arms moved and he looked down and smiled at the little boy that had just been born. "I'm sorry, Naruto, I have no choice. I have to save the village and there is only one technique I know of that will do it." He smiled at the young boy and his heart broke knowing this was the only time he would ever hold his son like this. "You deserve more than this, my son. You deserve to live with your family." He closed his eyes. The mother of his child, Kushina Uzumaki, the greatest love of his life, had died in childbirth. She had suffered an injury in the attack and went into labor. But it was difficult and she had lost too much blood. All the medical ins were at the front line and so he had been there for his love before she had died with their son in her arms. He placed a tarp over her body. She was still back there in his personal quarters. He couldn't leave her side even at a time like this, but she was gone now and a large part of his heart went with her. They hadn't even been officially married since the damn council didn't approve of him marrying someone outside of their village. But he still loved her and she loved him. They had stayed together and had to keep his relationship a secret. Only a trusted few like his old sensei Jiraiya, his last student Kakashi, and the previous Hokage. But now he had to make yet another sacrifice. He had left a note for those closest to him in his chambers. And he had one on his person just in case, but tonight was the night he knew he was going to die. There was an odd piece to it. In a way he would see his beloved again, but he didn't want to leave this life. He loved his village and the people and he wanted to see his son grow up. He felt the strings in his eyes as his tears started to fall, how he wanted to see little Naruto grow up. But he was Hokage, he had to protect the village and his duty outweighed what he wanted in life. He just hoped that Naruto would one day forgive him and understand why he had to leave him. He had left one of his tags he used for his flying thunder god technique, something he used that teleported him around, the same technique that earned him the name the Yellow Flash. In an instant he was transported across the area. He could hear the battle going on as he appeared among his people. "Hokage!" A few cried out. "Keep the line. I want you to try and keep it still," he ordered out. Ninjas went out to surround the beast, which wasn't an easy task. He felt the presence of an old friend behind him. "So finally here, how is she?" He turned to see the Toad Sage Jiraiya there. He had arrived just in time to help things out. Next to him, he could see Sarutobi with him. Even though retired, as Hokage, the old man was still here in his black and gray battle armor fighting as well. There was no surprise in that, but they saw the look on the young man's face and both older men felt that something horrible happened. "She's gone." It was the only thing he could say to them. Both men felt sorrow for him. They knew just how much he loved her and how much pain he had to be in. Then he surprised them both by smiling a little and turned to show them the bundle. "This is my son, Naruto." Sarutobi gave a small smile at the sight of the young boy. He already could see that the boy looked like his father. But Jiraiya frowned. He knew his student well and he knew that something was wrong. "Tell me why you brought your infant child here. What do you have planned?" The Hokage smiled, although there was no humor in it. "I knew you'd figured out I had something planned, old perv. There is a way to save the day, but I need my son's help." He reached into his clothing and pulled out a sealed letter. "Please come and find us when it's over and you'll find another in my chamber." There is one of my sons when he's old enough that I want him to read. Also tell Kakashi I'm sorry, he's lost so much, and I hate for him to lose another precious person in his life." Jiraiya took the note with hard eyes. He knew what the boy had planned, or at least an idea. He didn't want him to go, hell he was an inch from beating the hell out of him and forcing him not to go. But before he could object he was gone thanks to that damn technique of his. The older man looked at the letter and felt his sensei next to him. He looked at the older man's face and he could see that he knew, as well. "I hate this" was the only thing the Toad Sage could say. "So do I," Sarutobi said to his old student. He wished Tsunade was here, as well, but she had left the village and he wasn't sure where she was these days. It was only luck that Jiraiya had been wandering close enough to get here. Now he was seeing that young man go out there for the last time. If the night had been raining it would have set the dark mood perfectly. Later. Kakashi Hatake was a very young man and yet had already reached the level of Jonin. He had a large white hair that always seemed to stand up defying gravity. He was sitting with his back to a tree breathing hard. Not long ago the demon had been defeated, it was said that the fourth had arrived and somehow defeated it. He smiled at the thought of his sensei being able to defeat such a monster. He looked around with his one eye over the carnage. Bodies were everywhere, people cried out in pain as they were dying. Medical nins were doing their best, but there were just so many people injured and dying. Kakashi himself felt a few blows, nothing lethal, but he needed some rest. He wished he could block out the sounds though. He felt a split lip under his mask too. He sighed that it was one of the problems of always wearing a mask. He didn't have to of course, but it was just his style. Hell, no one knew what he looked like since he had worn one as far back as people could remember. He looked again with his eye that wasn't covered by his headband over the field. There would be many people that would lose their precious people today. It reminded him of his own losses, his father who committed suicide to atone for his dishonor, his mother, and worse his friends. First Obito who died on his first mission in the war, he had lost his eye on that mission, and Obito had asked Rin their medic to implant one of his into Kakashi. Then not long after Rin was lost to him, as well, it just seemed that everyone he loved or cared for was taken from him in life. The only one he had left really was his sensei, the new Hokage, and his wife, well technically not, but he knew that she was wife in everything but name. He was glad that his teacher and mentor had found a woman like her and were having a child soon. It seemed in even all this death there was at least something to look forward to. He had been so engrossed he actually missed the Anbu that landed next to him until he actually hit the ground. "Kakashi Hatake, you are to report to the Hokage Tower." "Oh man, I was just resting too," he grunted with the effort to get him. "Do you need assistance?" the masked ninja asked. "No, I'm fine, I just need to catch my second wind." He waved it off as he made his way to the tower. It was a long way for him, but he eventually made it to the large building under the mountain with the faces of the Hokages on them. He climbed the steps not surprised that there were no guards, everyone had been pulled off their usual duties for the demon. He found the office of the Hokage and opened them up, but he was a bit confused to see not the Hokage, but the previous Hokage there along with his sensei's teacher. Both of them had looks on their faces that suddenly made Kakashi's stomach twist in on itself. "Sarutobi-sama, Jiraiya-sama. I was expecting Hokage-sama to be here," he said as he walked over to them. It was then he noticed that there was a sleeping form in Sarutobi's arms. "I'm afraid of the Hokage." "I'm sorry Kakashi, he's dead." Sarutobi hung his head. Kakashi felt like he was crushed under those boulders all over again on the mission that had killed Obito. The last precious person he had in his life was gone. He felt hollow inside and very alone in the world. He hadn't felt like this since his father's death. He nearly fell to his knees, but he tried to keep on a brave face in front of his elders. But it was hard, so very hard. He just wanted to just sink to his knees and cry out his pain to the heavens. Why? Why him? Why must everyone I get close to die? He thought to himself and didn't notice how the old toad sage walked up to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know boy, I know how you feel. I loved the kid like a son, he deserved better than this. But it was his choice and the only way to stop the demon." Jiraiya told him. "How?" Kakashi asked, not to look at the older man. "As far as we can tell he used a forbidden art that sealed the demon into a host body. It will impress the demon for all time, but the cost to balance such a technique out requires the person performing it to sacrifice their own life." Sarutobi explained and walked over to the young man. This is Naruto, the Hokage's son. He used him to seal away the demon. He showed the snow-haired young man the child. Kakashi looked, and he could see the resemblance. The yellow hair and blue eyes were very alike. Although it was strange seeing what looked like whisker marks on his face. The young boy looked up at him with curious blue eyes. Kakashi actually grinned a bit. His teacher would have been a great father, and he knew that the man had been looking forward to this. But what if he trailed off asking about the mother, but the looks he got told him all he needed. I'm sorry she died giving birth. When the demon attacked she had been injured, and with the birth it was just too much for her body. Jiraiya told him. There is a letter for you here, he made one out to you to read. Sarutobi pointed with a free hand to the desk. Kakashi walked slowly towards it. It was strange not seeing his sensei there behind the desk. Images came to his mind of seeing him there working, how he seemed to smile a lot at him, giving him his missions, or just talking to him. He saw the picture there of him and his original team, and then of his sensei's team when he was a kid. He knew there was a picture of his lover in his desk drawer as well. It just seemed like a very bad dream, one that he wanted to wake up from. That he was still alive and he would see him tomorrow. But as he picked up the letter he knew deep down that he was just being stupid. He was gone. He opened the letter and read what was on there. Hello Kakashi, I know by now you're reading this and you know what happened. I'm sorry to leave you, I know you've lost so much in your life and I wish I didn't have to. But as Hokage I had to put the lives of my people above my own life and happiness. There is so much I could tell you. You were always the brightest student I had and I know you'll do me and the village proud. In fact, I'm already very proud of you. You were like a son to me, just like how Obito and Rin were like my own children. When we lost them, I felt like I had failed as a teacher. I was always afraid that I would lose you next, but it seems that you'll outlive me after all. Sorry stupid to make a joke here, but I had to do something to lighten the mood, right? Kakashi, I want you to know that I'll always watch over you, but I want you to do me a favor. Please, I trust you to keep an eye on my son Naruto. He'll have a large burden placed on him as the jailer for the demon, and I wanted him to be seen as a hero for his duty. Please watch over him from time to time. I think I can rest peacefully knowing that you will keep an eye out for him. I have to go. I can see that the fox is already near the walls. Please live well, my student. Kakashi read it over a few times, trying to memorize each word into his mind. By the end he felt the tears fall from his uncovered eye. He hung his head as he closed his eyes, trying to not break down at the moment. It was his wish, and he is the son of the Hokage. He said to his student. Look, I know you have faith in people and all, but look at what just happened out there. I honestly don't think people will react well to this. Hell, they might see the child as only a monster to be killed. The Toad Sage. I do have faith in the people of this village. Like you did with Orochimaru, Jiraiya said coldly. Sarutobi's head came back as if he had been visibly struck. Then he cast his look down, and Jiraiya knew he hit the right place to prove his point. Hell, Orochimaru had been his teammate as a kid. He had been the genius, Tsunade, the woman who was known as revolutionizing the medical ninja corps, and himself. Well, not the most well-known, he pulled his own weight as a master of seals. He had never really liked Orochimaru, and when he went bad it was no surprise to him, although he still felt betrayed. That bastard had experimented on his own people, the people he swore to protect, and when Sarutobi went after him, he had let him go in a moment of weakness. Sarutobi himself knew of that failure. He had honestly not seen the signs, although they had been there. He had seen how angry he had been when he hadn't named Orochimaru as Hokage after him. But he never thought that his own student would go to such evil lengths. Looking down at the child, he wondered if he was making another misjudgment. He should be put in a safe place. His father had lots of enemies, and they would love nothing more than to kill his son. Maybe put him into an orphanage. With all the death out there, it could be easy to say that his parents were killed in the battle. Lord knows how many orphans were made today anyway. Jiraiya muttered to himself. No. Both men turned to see Kakashi looking at them. They had forgotten that the boy had been there the entire time. I'll take him in. Jiraiya was the first to object. What? Kid, you're still a kid yourself, you can't possibly. I will, Kakashi said in an even tone. He is my sensei's son. He asked me to look out for him. He gave me so much in life, this is the least I can do to honor him. Kakashi meant his words. The little boy was the last living link to his sensei, someone who had been the only father figure in his life after his father's death. Looking after his son was the least he could do to honor the man and besides, the thought of the Hokage's son living in some orphanage was not something he could bear. The boy deserved more than he was sure of. "Kid, this won't be easy, plus with taking care of him, how will you deal when you have to go on missions?" Jiraiya asked him, crossing his arms. "I'll do what I can, and I could leave him in the care of certain services if I need to take missions for cash, but I've saved up a lot besides what I have in my family holdings as well," the young man said. "Are you really going to let this kid go through with this?" Jiraiya asked the old Hokage. He looked down at the child who had fallen asleep and then to the young man. He knew all too well of Kakashi's life story, and he was surprised the young man would take up such a responsibility. But maybe it would be better than just an orphanage for the young boy. There would already be too many children without parents tonight. "Perhaps I could use you on the Anbu teams. I'll need more to fill in spots for at least a few years. It will keep you close, and although they don't have the pay for A or S class missions, they will afford you a bit of an easier time. Until then, Naruto is a bit older, and you can go back to going out on missions." Sarutobi also knew that Kakashi was well on his way to Anbu anyway, but this would help in both matters. With so many of their own dead, their village would need more security in case other villages wanted to take advantage of it. Jiraiya gave a small grunt. No one was sure if he was for or against it, but it seemed like Kakashi wouldn't move on the subject. "If you truly do want to do this, then you can try, but remember this might be a lot more difficult than any ninja missions," he warned the young man. He still remembered how he had raised his own children, not to mention his estranged son. Kakashi nodded his head as he walked towards the young boy. He knew this would be tough, but he had to do this, if only in the memory of the Hokage, plus one day Naruto should know of the kind of man his father was. And he could always teach little Naruto the things he had been taught, as well, passing on the knowledge from Naruto's father through him. Sarutobi slowly handed the small boy to Kakashi as he held him for the first time. Naruto moved a bit, opened his eyes for a moment, and then went back to sleep. Kakashi looked at the young boy, and even though his heart was heavy and filled with the hole left in it, looking at the young boy filled him with something. In a way, a part of his teacher would live on in Naruto. "Well, now that's out of the way, what do we tell the council? This will get out eventually, you know," the Toad Sage asked his teacher. "I'm not sure, maybe we can tell only the elders and keep it secret by law. Only people of Jordan or higher rank could know, but maybe keep it all secret, and the young boy's legacy and his task as jailer only to be known to us in this room and to him when the time is right." Sarutobi would have to think about this. He just hoped that, when the time came, he could think of the best way to deal with Naruto's secrets, but in the meantime he would let Kakashi try his hand at parenting, and he wished the boy luck. He would need all of the luck he could get. The crying was the first thing that woke the tired Anbu ninja up. Kakashi groaned as he got up from his bed. He still had on most of his uniform. He had been so tired that he had just crashed onto his bed. Even his mask was still on, but then he usually slept with it on anyway. It was on for so long that sometimes he forgot to take it off when he showered. But now the crying of Naruto woke the young ninja up. He sighed as he rubbed his tired eyes and went out of his room. He was still living in his apartment. It wasn't that big a place, but then again he hadn't needed a big place. Sure, he still had his parents' old house, but after what happened with his father killing himself, he just couldn't live there. Although he knew that, when Naruto got bigger, this place wouldn't be enough, and he might have to move back. Kakashi knew he could always sell it, but it had been in his family for 2 generations. He made his way to Naruto's room. It had just been a small room that he used for storage, but he moved all that stuff out to make room for Naruto's crib and other things. He flicked on the light, blinded for a moment as the sting of the sudden light hit his eye. He blinked and saw the scene. The room was white, but he did plan on fixing it up a little with more color at some point. There was the crib, a changing table, and a few other things. He walked over to Naruto's crib and looked down at the young boy. How can someone so small have such a powerful set of lungs? He asked himself as he picked up the crying infant. He rocked Naruto gently, trying to soothe him. It had been 3 months since that night he took Naruto in, and he hadn't had a decent night's sleep since. Sure, he had gone days without sleep on missions, but this took things to a whole new level. He swore they should let ninjas take care of infants for those sleep deprivation training. There. What is it, little guy? Are you hungry again? Kakashi couldn't believe how much the little guy ate. It was kind of unbelievable that someone so small had such a stomach. He couldn't smell anything, thank goodness, so it wasn't for changing. He carried Naruto into the kitchen as he went to get a bottle. The little blonde boy was dressed in orange, for some reason he seemed to like the color. Kakashi always had trouble dressing him in other colors. He would throw fits for some reason, unless it was orange. He took out a bottle from the fridge and used a small jutsu to heat it up. It was just a simple heating one used when you were stuck out in the cold. Mainly you used your chakra, the life energy that all ninjas train to use, to mainly make a blanket of warmth around you. He just used it on his hand until the bottle was nice and warm. He adjusted Naruto, and the baby eagerly fed off the bottle. "There you go," he said gently, closing the fridge with his foot and walking him around the apartment. He found out that this seemed to calm him down. "Man, I know I said I'd look after you, but who knew this was so hard? Makes me glad for all those babysitting rank D missions I had as a kid." He shivered at the memories of those missions. They were not pleasant experiences, but he at least got something useful out of it, and he was putting all of that to work. Naruto eventually finished, and Kakashi started to pat his back to burp him. He heard the sound and smiled, but then froze, feeling something warm slithering on his shoulder. "I forgot to put a towel on me again, didn't I?" he asked little Naruto, who giggled. Kakashi knew that he had some spit up on his shoulder now. He had been tired and forgot to put that damn rag on now and then. He found something else out. Getting that stuff cleaned off a ninja uniform wasn't easy. He sighed and proceeded to walk around with Naruto a little, rocking him. It took nearly an hour for the boy to sleep. He had a lot of energy in him, and he was always looking around the place. Kakashi had to watch him, as he liked to crawl and explore and usually get into trouble. Kakashi had to make sure that he kept all his weapons well out of the way. He had to stop Naruto from picking up and trying to play with a shuriken that he had dropped onto the floor at some point. It wasn't an easy life, that was sure, but he did it, plus he knew that the boy needed him as well. Who else would look after him? The new Hokage III, after taking back his title, had decided that only the council will know of Naruto and his past, as well as the Anbu and Jonins. He still remembered that day as well. A week ago, Kakashi was holding Naruto as he walked into the Hokage's office. By now the entire village was slowly getting back on its feet. The dead had been buried, and there was a mass funeral for everyone. He had been there with Naruto. It was only fitting, after all Naruto had lost his parents that night. Even if the child didn't really know it at the moment, or maybe he had, for some strange reason Naruto had been uncharacteristically quiet during the whole thing. Kakashi went into the office as the Hokage had told him to arrive. He walked in, seeing the third back behind the desk. He now wore the old robes he had used to wear before he had stepped down. The white robes with some red trimming, the large matching hat with the symbol of fire on the front of it. "Hokage-sama," Kakashi bowed to him as much as he could. "Ah, Kakashi, I'm glad to see you. How has Naruto been?" The old man smiled at the little boy, who looked up at the strange old man. He reached up with one hand to the pipe that the old man was smoking. "Hokage, if you'd please?" He nodded his head to the pipe. The old man smiled and put it out. He had given up on that with his own boys, but with them all grown up and moved out, he had taken it up again. Kakashi nodded his thanks. "Well, Naruto is a handful, and I swear the amount of energy he has is frightening. I never knew a baby could wear you out so much so fast." The old man gave a small laugh and remembered his own experiences when he was younger. "Well, the reason I called you here was to tell you about my decision. I had to tell the council about Naruto, his full heritage, as well as the demon sealed away inside of him." Kakashi sighed. "Didn't go well, did it?" "No, it didn't." He rubbed his temples from the headache that he got from that. "At least there were a few of the more reasonable ones. The Hyugas seem to be not opposed, but they aren't exactly happy about it, but they will not go against the wishes of the fourth. The Aburams are just as neutral, but I think they're just waiting to see how the boy is before they judge him." That he was thankful for. At least the Aburam clan kept their emotions tightly controlled, but they were very logical as well. "Any others?" Kakashi asked. "A few of the less powerful members will not seem to cause any problems, but there is a large faction that feel that the boy is too dangerous to live." This was led by the current head of the Uchiha clan. "But I gave a law that stated that they were not to discuss this outside of the council. This is an S-class secret punishable by death. So only the members of the council will know of Naruto and his secrets. Only the new heads will be told, and of course all the Jonins and Anbu members." Kakashi nodded his head, listening to all of this. "I have to wonder why you had to tell them at all. He would be much safer if no one knew." The Hokage nodded. I had considered that, but I also had to consider other things. What if the secret got out? The entire council would be after my head for keeping this from them. Also, we also have to worry about what if one day the seal on Naruto breaks or someone tries to actually remove the damn thing off of him. Kakashi hadn't thought of that, but then again, why would anyone do something like that? No one would be that insane, would they? It would most likely kill Naruto if they broke the seal. Kakashi felt a bit more protective of the boy, wondering what such a thing would do to the little blonde boy. My old student, the one that taught your sensei. He's heard of things. Naruto is not the first of his kind, there have been others before, but mostly they have been killed either by the demons they hold or by others. The old man looked very serious at that moment as he looked at Kakashi. There have been whispers of something brewing, rumors mainly that he was a bit concerned over. There has been lately someone or more than one person looking into people like Naruto. Vessels for demons, in fact an ancient scroll of such things, was said to have been stolen recently from the village of Mist. So there could be a threat, but he's still looking into such things, as he is looking for other things that are of concern as well. Oh? What else is going on? Kakashi asked. Are you aware of Orochimaru's new status as a missing nin, correct? He asked, and Kakashi nodded. Well, one girl Anko is missing, she was training under him and disappeared soon before we found out about what Orochimaru was doing. The old man sighed and closed his eyes, still remembering the horrors he had found in that basement room. To think of one of his own students capable of such evil things, he felt like he had failed his student in some way. We are searching for her, but we don't know if she knew of his status when she left or not. So my other student Jiraiya is looking for leads for him as well. He leaned back into his chair feeling very tired. This year has been a very dark year, it seems. We will endure just as we always have, Hokage, Kakashi said honestly, and that made the old man smile just a bit. But I am worried that not everyone will obey your law about Naruto. Yes, they may find ways around it, but I felt you had to be told, just in case you need to be ready for anything. The Hokage said to him. Present. Kakashi was putting Naruto back into his crib after the baby had gone back to sleep. He pulled the orange blanket over the sleeping form and placed his favorite toy next to him, a small orange fox. He wasn't sure why Naruto had an affinity for the animal. Maybe on some level he knew about the demon fox within him, or maybe it was a slight influence from the demon itself. He hated that last thought, the boy was so innocent, and the thought of him being taken over by that monster actually scared him. Kakashi had lost too much to lose another, and in this time Naruto was becoming an important part of his life. He worried about the little boy, but when Naruto laughed or smiled it actually made Kakashi happy. Happier than he had been in a while actually, plus little Naruto had an infectious laugh. To think that people could hate such a baby was just stupid to him. He gently ran his hand over the blonde hair. I promise you I'll protect you, Naruto. Across the city, over in another district of the city, in a large area known as the Uchiha district, in the center of it was the main Uchiha home. This was where the main branch of the family resided. It was a very large estate on par only with that of the Hyugas, who were also the rivals of the Uchiha. In the main house, in one of the larger rooms lit by candles, sat many members of the council. At the head of the table was the leader of the Uchihas, Fugaku Uchiha. So we are all in agreement then? The head of the Uchihas asked those around him. He was a tall and powerful looking man. He didn't show emotion and looked to be the type to demand perfection from everyone around him, especially of his clan. He had gathered those that knew that the Hokage was a fool to allow the vessel of the demon to live on. It didn't matter if it was the will of the fourth to keep the boy alive, or even if he was his son. Personally, Fugaku never really thought much of the fourth Hokage anyway. He had seen that man before he became the legendary Yellow Flash, and he wasn't impressed with him then. So it was of little consequence to him if the sons of the last Hokage were killed or not. Although we can't take direct action, that doesn't mean that we can take overt actions. He looked at the faces around him, and all had eyes of hatred in them. All of them had lost someone precious to them to the demon's attack, and it was a powerful motivation. What can we do then, Fugaku-sama? One of the men asked. We can't make it obvious, or else the Hokage would send the Anbu after whoever was behind things. Another said. Yes, we need someone to take the fall. Another agreed. Yes, we need to find someone with no affiliation that will kill the boy without hesitation, and if possible take their own life to prevent them from talking if captured. Fugaku said. But the problem is finding someone like that, plus with his new father around, it will make things even more hard. Yes, everyone knows of Kakashi, he even has your blood limit the Sharingan. One of the men stated. Fugaku slammed his hand hard into the table. Never speak of that in my presence. The fact that fool of a friend of his gave him the pride of my clan shames us all. To think that someone outside my clan uses the Sharingan is an everlasting insult to me. If that fool Obito was still alive, I'd kill him myself for what he did. But you raise a fine point, Kakashi is not to be taken lightly, and now he's an Anbu himself, so that makes things even more complicated. What do we do then? One of them asked. We wait, we find someone that we can use against a boy, but we also might have to wait until the boy is older. Kakashi is only an Anbu to stay close to the boy, but once he's old enough I know that Kakashi would go back into the field. He's that kind of ninja, and he'll take on missions that will have him leave the village, and then we can easily strike at the demon boy. Fugaku said to them all. We shouldn't wait. He should be killed now. Someone spoke up. You fool, there is another reason to wait. He snapped at the man. The more time that goes by, the more relaxed security will be around the boy. Plus any accident that can happen to him would be more plausible. If something were to happen too soon, the Hokage would know that it had been set up to kill the boy. No, we will wait until the time is right, and then we will strike. Soon after that the meeting was over, but the leader of the Uchiha clan waited patiently. Then a door slid open, and a young boy of about 5 with dark hair and matching eyes walked in. He held an impassive face just like the man across from him. What are your thoughts on this, Itachi? He asked the young man. I think it is wise to wait for my father. He said calmly to his father. Although personally he didn't see the point in all of this, just to kill a little boy. It was beneath his family to hide in the shadows like this and plot such a thing. They were the most powerful clan, and here they were acting like some weak and pathetic group of cowards. It sickened him to think that his proud clan would be reduced to such a state, but he showed nothing of this. His father nodded his head. I want you to keep an eye out in the ninja ranks for anyone we can use. Most likely when someone is given the level of Jonin and learns of the boy's true nature, we will find who we need. Itachi bowed his head. As you wish, father, but if you don't mind, I need to prepare. I have a test tomorrow, and I wish to be ready for it. His father nodded his head, and Itachi bowed as he left the room. He walked through the large mansion and heard the crying of his little brother. He passed an open door and saw his mother there picking up the newborn and trying to soothe him. Itachi knew that his father had rarely seen his little brother, which actually bothered him a little. He knew that his father saw that the firstborn son was the pride and future of the clan, but that it was not necessary to ignore another. His little brother was an Uchiha after all, and he held hope that his little brother would prove to be strong like himself. But only time would tell of this, and he hoped that his little brother wouldn't disappoint him like so many of his clan had. He moved on silently as his thoughts turned back into his clan. He knew his clan was supposed to be the most powerful in the village, and he was the pride of their clan, but the truth was he felt he was nowhere near his limit. He trained and pushed himself to new levels and always tried to reach the next level. His power with the Sharingan was matched with no one, and yet he still had not obtained its full power. He knew that there were untold levels of strength and power for him, but he just needed to be shown how to get it. He gave a mental sigh as he got ready. He put those thoughts aside as he thought about his test in school. Although he didn't know why bother, he was the best in his class after all. No one was even close to where he was in his skill or intelligence, just as it should be since he was an Uchiha. But still there was no challenge for him there at the school, no one to push him to his limits or beyond. He needed to become the strongest there was in the clan, maybe even the world, but he was not finding anything to help him reach that goal here. Everyone praised him for his hard work, but he never saw it as truly hard. He wanted a way to surpass everyone and everything, to be a true ninja. He wasn't sure how, but he was sure one day he would find his way to becoming the most powerful ninja in the world, and when he found out how to obtain the full power of his Sharingan, no one would stop him. Kakashi was sleeping in his bed when his alarm went off. He groaned and slammed a hand onto the evil device as he pushed the covers away. He yawned and reached for his mask, putting it on and getting up. He looked at the time and groaned. It was one of the things he hated about being an Anbu captain, and that was getting up early for team meetings and reports. If he had known that he wouldn't have taken the promotion 2 years ago, it would have offered him more time with Naruto and better pay. That was something he needed. Having a kid was expensive, that was for sure. Plus the fact that Naruto ate what seemed like his own body weight at times. Where it all went he had no idea. After showing and changing into his Anbu uniform, he looked in Naruto's room. It had changed over the years, gone now was the crib and other baby things. Now the room held a toy box, a bed, and a nightstand with a lamp and clock next to it. There was a small shelf of books that he used to teach Naruto to read, but mainly for him to read to Naruto at night. It was strange how in the past 4 years he felt less and less like a guardian and more like a father. He had few memories of his own father, and the fourth was the next best thing he had, so he had been playing it mostly by ear. He had asked a few others in Anbu for advice who had children, and thank God for that, or else he would have been totally lost. But looking at the small boy who was sleeping soundly in his bed, holding the fox toy that he had, as a baby he couldn't help but smile. Unfortunately it was breakfast time, and he knew that Naruto could be hard to wake up, and the Hokage had a mission for him, so he wanted to say goodbye before he left. He left for the kitchen and cooked up some ramen. It was odd how Naruto loved the stuff. He had the same love for it as Kakashi had for his icha, which he kept locked up, so Naruto would never find them, even if he was still learning to read. After the ramen was finished he sat down and then took a breath. "Naruto, the ramen is ready," he called out. He raised a hand and ticked off 5 seconds with each finger. As soon as he made a fist meaning 0, Naruto burst into the room and jumped onto the chair wide awake, still in his orange PJs. "Cool. Thanks daddy," he said smiling happily as he dug into his food. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. Naruto had been calling him daddy since he could talk, and in truth he liked it. Although daddy had been his second word, his first was ramen, which he said for an entire day non-stop. So no wonder he loved that food. He watched as Naruto just inhaled his meal. "Naruto, I got to go to work today. You think you'll be okay for a bit? I have to arrange for someone to look after you before I leave," he told him. "'Kay daddy, is it going to be Iruka again?" he asked. "We'll see Naruto, now finish up and wash up, okay?" The young genin named Iruka had taken care of Naruto a few times, but at the moment he wasn't sure. The Chunin exams were coming up and Iruka was going training since he was going to enter this year. It was nice, but he was one of the few people he trusted with Naruto. Over the years he had been aware of certain things when Naruto was alone out on the streets. Like potted plants would fall, and he just managed to pull him out of the way of them, or a cart that just happened to lose control nearly crashing into him. One night he had known someone had snuck into his home, and looking around he found a few black widow spiders in Naruto's crib. They were random and spaced out, but he knew that someone or someones were targeting Naruto. He told the Hokage of course, but the only thing he could do without evidence was to increase Anbu patrols around Naruto just in case. This of course lessened the accidents, but still they would happen. Some even Kakashi weren't sure if they were just accidents or if he was just getting paranoid. After making sure Naruto would be okay for at least a few hours he realized that he was running a bit late. He guessed he wouldn't be able to visit the memorial this morning again, so he just would when he got back. It was the least he could do to honor the memory of those that he cared for after all. He put on his Anbu mask, that of a wolf, and made his way to the Hokage's office. He found the man at his desk trying once more at battle with his arch-nemesis, the dreaded paperwork. He smirked behind his mask, both of them actually, since he still had on his regular one under that. Well, 3 if you count the other mask under his usual one he sometimes wore. "Hey, sorry I'm late Hokage-sama, an old lady needed help crossing the street," he said, taking off the wolf mask. The old man gave a grunt trying to hide his smirk. Hatake always seemed to have an excuse. "Well, now that you're finally here I have a mission for you and your squad. Tell me you remember Anko, right?" "Oh yeah, the girl Kai's team found," Kakashi said as he remembered her. She had been taken by Orochimaru a few years ago and after about a year turned up alone on a beach. She had been starving and dehydrated. In fact, if the Anbu team hadn't found her, she might have died after a few more days. She had been taken care of, but her memories had a lot of holes in them. She sometimes got flashes now and then of something, but nothing much beyond that. He also knew of her mark, the dark seal that Orochimaru put on her. Kakashi was learning about seals lately, and all Anbu were told of the seals and to keep an eye out for anyone else that had them. "How is she doing these days?" he asked him. "Pretty good," he gave a small smile. "That first year back was really hard on her, but she's turning out to be a great Chunin. In fact, don't be surprised if in a year or so she makes Jonin. But she's also remembered something lately. She had another of her flashes, and I've been trying to help her remember." She thinks she remembers an area where Orochimaru might be or is. So you'll be taking her along to see if you can find anything. Kakashi nodded, got it, but there is another thing that I need help with. I need someone to look after Naruto, and well, I would like someone that can take care of himself. Lately I've been worried that someone is getting a bit more bold in harming him. The Hokage nodded his head, he heard everything Kakashi had told him, and it was worrying the old man. That was why he had looked up to someone special for looking after Naruto. He was a bit unorthodox even by Konoha standards, but he was still one of their best. I already have someone planned for that, guy, you can come in now, he called out. The doors opened, and he walked in a jonin with the usual vest, but he wore bright green spandex suit and had the strangest haircut. It looked like a bowl cut of some kind, as he had pure black hair. He grinned with unnatural white teeth. Kakashi thought he could actually see them shine when he smiled, as he gave him a thumbs up. "Ah, so this is the mighty Kakashi, the famous copy ninja," the strange ninja said to him. "I'm Mito Guy, sometimes referred to as the Green Beast. I'm sure you remember me. After all, we were on a couple of missions together." Kakashi looked at him for a moment in silence in a thinking pose. "Nope, never heard of you, and, as odd as it is, I don't remember you either." Guy nearly face planted at that, as Kakashi turned to the Hokage. "Is he on any medication that I should be aware of?" "Not that we know of," the third said under his breath. Guy was right back up to his old self in a second, clapping a hand to Kakashi's back. "Don't worry, your youthful child is in perfect hands. If anything happens, I'll do 1,000 laps around Konoha with weights on my hands." He did the same flashing grin and thumbs up again. Kakashi suddenly had a very strong sense of doom at the moment. Later, Kakashi was with Naruto as he was happily watching a kids program on the TV. "Now Naruto is good to Guy, okay?" "Okay, but can I get Iruka next time?" "I really like him, Daddy," he said over his shoulder. "Yeah, he's a good young man, but behave with Guy, okay?" he said, knowing how Naruto could get, especially if he got too much sugar. The times he managed to eat too much of that even made him more hyperactive. It was insane how such a little boy could get that hyper. He swore with all that energy he could run up and down the Hokage monument several times before getting tired. "Daddy, how long will you be gone?" Naruto was a little worried. He hated it when his dad had to leave. He knew it was his job and all, but he didn't like it. His dad always knew what to do. He remembered when he was scared of the monster in his closet, his dad had come in asking him what was wrong, and he told him about the monster. The next thing Naruto knew, his father threw several kunai into the closet in the blink of an eye. "Now Naruto, if the monster is still in there, he's not happy, and if he comes back, just remember, any monster that wants to harm you has to get through me first." After that, Naruto slept peacefully in his room, not afraid of any monster because he knew his daddy would protect him. So he always worried that something might happen when his dad was gone, but then again his dad was strong and brave and he wanted to be just like him. Kakashi thought about it. "I'm not sure, but I promise I'll hurry, okay?" "Okay, Daddy." He smiled broadly at his dad, and Kakashi couldn't help but smile back. The doorbell rang, and Kakashi went to it. He opened it up to see Guy there giving one of those bright smiles. He pulled him in before he could start going on again about youth and stuff like that. "Now look, I'll be gone for a few days, so take good care of him. There's a list of things you should know in the fridge, and be careful not to give him too much sugar, and you do remember what you were told about Naruto and what to watch out for, right?" Guy nodded, getting a bit more serious at that last part. He knew that certain people weren't too happy with Naruto and that anyone could be after him. He did honor the late Hokage's wishes, and besides, to him, anyone that would harm a small boy was the more youthful people that deserved no respect from him. "No worries, Kakashi, I'll see to his safety, and you can trust me." He flashed his grin and gave the thumbs up. Kakashi just sighed as he went to introduce Naruto to Guy. Outside his apartment, however, two shadowy figures were roaming across the street, both wearing cloaks that hide the ninja garb under their vestments. They were a couple of missing outlaw ninjas that had turned from their village. They had been hired to sneak into this village to assassinate a young boy. Even among missing ninjas, some still had some standards, but these two were not one of them. "What do you think of Ichigo?" his partner asked. "I think we should wait until Kakashi leaves Renji," he said to him. There was no way that they wanted to fight Sharingan Kakashi. When they were told who was protecting the boy, they found out the reason why they were being paid so much. Although their employer, whoever it was, had made sure there was a way in and out for them, and that their mission was timed so that Kakashi was far enough away it was still a little unsettling. They heard the stories, and they didn't want to fight the Jonin, so they would wait until he was a long distance away. That way if they were found out at least they had a good head start in getting the hell out of there. Besides, the one in the green didn't look like that much of a threat anyway. We wait and get ready, Ichigo. I want you to shadow them and take the boy out from a distance with your poison. I'll set up a backup plan just in case. Renji told his partner. After that, Kakashi left his home and made his way to the gate, hoping that he wasn't too late. When he got in range of the massive gate, he could see two of his fellow Anbu there, with a girl a little younger than he was, with purple hair pulled up at the back of her head. She was pretty looking, although the scowl on her face and how she looked a bit pissed sent him a few warning bells about her. Damn it, where the hell is he? I thought Anbu were supposed to be the elite ninjas of this city, and you'd think your captain would be on time for once, Anko said, tapping her foot. Unfortunately, he kind of has trouble with the time apparently, one of the Anbu said. He knew all too well that their captain was always late. It was a running joke that Kakashi would be late for his own funeral one day. She then noticed an Anbu walking up towards them. She guessed this was the one they were waiting for. Sorry about that, I got lost on the road to life, he simply said to them all. Anko raised an eyebrow. Lost on the road of life? What the hell does that even mean? You got a lot of nerve, buddy, she growled out, getting into his face. The least you could do is show up on damn time, and I don't care if you are an Anbu, I'd still kick your ass. Duly noted, Kakashi said in a bored tone, although he could feel the killer intent from the young woman. He made a mental note not to piss her off any further, or he'd have to see just how good she really was. Fine then, let's go, before I forget anything important, she said, and Kakashi noticed the slightly more serious and darker look on her face. He had no idea what it had to be like living with giant holes in your memory, although sometimes he wondered if he would be better forgetting certain things as well. Haddock residence. Guy was one of the strongest ninjas there was. He had the patience of a mountain, strong like an oak tree. He had seen hundreds of battles, seen a lot in his young life, but at the moment he was wondering if he could handle such a thing as a hyperactive 4-year-old. Hey, why do you wear green? Why is your hair like that? What are those big things over your eyes? Do you know my daddy? He's the strongest and bestest there is, and I'm going to be just like him. Are you strong? Can you show me? Can you, Mr. What was your name again, mister? All of this within seconds came from young Naruto. Guy had to admit the flames of youth in this boy was like a blazing inferno. He had never seen a child with so much potential energy. Oh Kakashi, you have a fine boy. The flames burned brightly in him. I hope one day I too will find a boy with flames that match him. He would make the perfect student. He grinned at the boy, and Naruto was surprised by how shiny the tall man's teeth were. I'm Mito Guy, little Naruto-kun, but you can call me Guy, he said to him. Okay, Naruto grinned at the tall man. So Naruto, what do you want to do? Play ninja? Naruto suddenly ran off, leaving Guy to search for him. For such a small child he was fast, and Guy went into Naruto's room, but couldn't see him anywhere. Guy was surprised that he could hide so fast, but then again he knew the home better than he did. Guy went around searching the room. He opened the closet, but only saw a mess in there, nothing but what looked like a pile of laundry that hadn't been cleaned yet. Guy sighed at such a sight. He would have thought Kakashi would have taught young Naruto better than that. He shook his head and went searching for the young boy. He looked in a toy chest with no luck, then he knelt down to check under the bed. That was when his sense of danger hit him. Like all experienced ninjas, they had learned to trust their gut when someone was watching or about to attack. He heard the feet running and turned just in time to catch the little blonde boy as he jumped at the man. He launched himself into Guy's chest as he caught the giggling boy. I got ya! He shouted out, and Guy looked across, seeing the disturbed pile of clothing. He smirked, knowing now that the boy had used that to hide himself. Guy had to admit the boy showed some talent, at least for surprises. He got up and placed Naruto on the ground as the young boy gave him a huge fox-like smile. Guy couldn't help but like the kid. He was full of the fires of youth. Well, my youthful young man, what happens now that you got me? Guy asked. It's your turn to hide now. Then prepare yourself. Guy decided to show off a bit and threw down a smoke bomb. Naruto looked with wide eyes as the smoke cleared and Guy was gone. Then he grinned as he started running around looking for him. He ran out of the room, and Guy, who was on the ceiling, smiled down at him. He was using his chakra to stick himself to the ceiling, and when Naruto left, simply and silently landed He turned around going into a thinking pose as he thought about Naruto. He had heard how great Kakashi had taken in the child, and he had to admit he had been surprised. He never pictured Kakashi as the family type. But he seemed to be doing a good job, although Naruto could be a bit more tidy, but maybe he was expecting a bit much from a 4-year-old. He wondered what Naruto would be like when he started his training. That was when he felt a small body wrap around his leg. Got you again. He looked down, surprised that the boy had come back so quickly. How did you? Daddy uses that trick too, mister. He smiled up at Guy, and the older man just had to laugh. They continued to play for a bit until Naruto got a little tired. While taking a nap, Guy went over the list that Kakashi left. It was kind of simple, usually the dos and don'ts, although what was underlined in red was, "Don't feed him sugar," in big bold letters. Guy was wondering if Kakashi was being a hen mother or just trying to warm him. He heard the sounds of small footsteps and saw little Naruto rubbing his eye with a yawn. Then he heard the young boy's stomach growl. "Hungry?" he asked him, and Naruto nodded quickly. "So what do you want for lunch?" "Ramen," he yelled out happily. "Okay, but it's a good day out, we shouldn't waste it inside all the time. How about we go outside? I've heard of a place that is supposed to have the best ramen in the city." Guy smiled, seeing how huge Naruto's eyes were now. The little boy loved ramen, but if there was a place that served the best, he couldn't wait to go. He ran over to Guy, hooping up and down asking to go there. Guy smiled, seeing how suddenly awake he was, and gave a small laugh as he put on his vest. When they left the apartment, the two ninjas that had been waiting finally saw their target. As the two walked on, they started to shadow their prey. Guy was walking down the streets of the village watching with a smile as Naruto was running around full of energy. He also noticed a few other things. Most people would smile at the little boy, but Guy caught a few glares at the boy. He knew full well of Naruto's little guest inside of the boy, but apparently word was getting around slowly about it. Guy honestly couldn't see why you could hate such a child, but maybe the few of the elders on the council that had spoken of Naruto could have embellished certain details. Meaning that they played up the demon role to the point that anyone would mistrust the boy. Even though he had heard rumors of things such as a demon child that was around, they never mentioned Naruto by name, but there were things such as the child having whisker marks. In a way, they were getting around the Hokage's rule by not mentioning Naruto by name, but still this was something that would only harm the boy. Thankfully Naruto didn't notice this, as he was too happy with the thought of ramen. Guy kept a lookout for any troublemakers besides the two shadowy figures he sensed that were following them. Ninjas on the rooftops was a normal thing, but after they had left Kakashi's he thought he felt a presence following them. As they walked on, he kept an eye out and found not one, but two. They weren't bad either, they weren't jonin like he was most likely a high chunin level of ninja. He couldn't turn his head to get a good look at them without giving away what he knew. So he kept an eye on them at any rate. He also continued to watch in amazement at how Naruto ran around with that huge smile on his face. "Naruto, here we are," he said, and he led the boy under a tarp with a sign over it that read Ichiraku Ramen. "Hey there, Ichiraku." A man with an apron who was working the hot stove looked over his shoulder. "Guy, what are you doing here this fine day? And who is the little one?" he asked, looking at Naruto. Naruto had to go on his tiptoes and pulled himself up just to look over the counter. He could smell ramen from here, and he looked like a predator ready to eat its prey at all the ramen. Guy smiled and ruffled his hair. "This is Naruto Hatake, and I'm taking care of him while his father is on a mission. And he seems to like ramen, and you make the best in the city." "You got that right," he said with pride. "Dad, where is that extra stack of noodles?" The young teenage daughter walked in. "I think under the counter, dear." "Okay." Then she turned to see a small blonde boy trying to get onto the stool. He obviously was having trouble. "Oh, who's the little cutie?" Guy picked up Naruto and placed him on the stool. "Naruto," he said, happily wondering where his ramen was. "He's so cute," she gushed at the little boy. He had these cute little marks and these beautiful blue eyes. She couldn't remember ever seeing anyone with eyes like his before. "So what do you want, little man?" "Ramen, please." "What kind?" she asked. Naruto thought about it. He wasn't sure he liked all types of ramen, well, not vegetarian for some reason. So he crossed his arms looking deep in thought, then he suddenly got an idea. "All of it." Guy laughed and gave them an order. While all this was going on, he felt that chakra of the ninja behind them. The partner didn't seem to be there, so this could be the perfect time to see who was shadowing them. Naruto, I have to check on something. I'll be right back, so be good, okay? K. Naruto went back to waiting for his ramen. The little boy was almost bouncing in his seat in anticipation. Guy had to smile at the little boy's actions and went outside. Up in the building, one of the ninjas was already lining up a shot. Ichigo took out a long tube that he had hidden under his cloak and pulled out a dart. There was enough poison on the dart to kill an elephant, more than enough to take out a small boy within a second. He waited for the boy to finish, the damn flaps were in the way, so he'd have to wait until the boy was out from the cover. I wonder what's so special about him? Oh well, most likely just someone wanting to settle a score against Kakashi, he muttered to himself. He was thankful that the other guy left just for some reason. He watched and waited. Dynamic entry. Dynamic WHA. Ichigo turned to the sound of the strange battle cry to get a foot planted into his face. He was surprised by the hit as it sent him flying through the air. He bounced a few times over the roof and nearly went over the edge. He quickly managed to stop himself and frantically pulled himself up, his heart racing from his near-fatal fall. He looked up to see that strange green ninja standing there. What the hell? I figured you were up to no good, Guy said with a more serious look on his face. The ninja had lost the hood and he could see the young man with blue spiky hair and gray eyes. He didn't know the ninja from the bingo books, so he must either be new or just not that good. You knew. Ichigo couldn't believe that he had been found out. He figured he had shadowed the two of them perfectly. Of course I am Guy Mito, the green beast of Konoha. The power of youth burns in me with the intensity of 1,000 suns. He struck out a pose. Ichigo's sweat dropped at this. This is the guy that got the drop on me? Renji will never let me live this down. Ichigo stood up. Okay then, weirdo, take this. They threw out a few kunai and the guy just vanished. What the? Was that just an illusion? A powerful blow to the back of his head told him otherwise. Once more he was sent flying and landed hard on the roof. He looked to see the green ninja was behind him. He honestly didn't know how he had managed that, but he formed a few hand seals. Water technique. Rapid fire. Out of his mouth many small but fast-moving pieces of water shot out at Guy. The water shots were formed into blades and Guy noticed that when one hit the roof it actually cut into it. He knew that water at super pressure would cut through things like a blade, and so he quickly dodged the shots. His speed was so fast that Ichigo could barely even follow, and when the attack ended Guy was right in front of him and landed a blow to his gut that felt like a sledgehammer hit him. He felt ribs break and fell to the ground holding his chest, gasping for air. Guy lifted him up to face him. Now then, who sent you to attack Naruto-kun? D don't know his name, was through at middleman. Oh god, I think my lung is punctured. He managed to get out. Screaming was heard and Guy left the man there. He wasn't going anywhere, and if he was it wouldn't be far anyway. He caught sight of another ninja running off with Naruto. Damn, so there was the other one, I sense. He felt foolish for forgetting the other one. If anything happened to Naruto he would never forgive himself, plus he was sure Kakashi would kill him. Naruto didn't know what had happened. One moment he was eating another bowl, his fourth, of the best ramen he ever had, when some strange and scary ninja grabbed him. He tried to struggle, but the man was too big and strong, and his grip was hurting him. Damn brat, this was supposed to be an easy gig, and now I may have just lost my partner. Well, more money for me, but I'm going to skin you alive for the trouble you've caused as soon as I lose the other guy, he said in a deep, cold voice. Naruto had never been so scared in his life. He wanted his daddy to be here, he always protected him, and Naruto started to cry. Shut the hell up. He hit Naruto on the head with his free hand. I'll give you something to cry about soon enough. Naruto whimpered as the man hit him and tried not to cry. Although he hoped that his daddy would come soon to save him. After a while they came to one of the forest training grounds. Renji figured he had managed to lose the other guy by now. He threw Naruto against a tree and Naruto whimpered in pain with tear-filled eyes. He looked up at the man with long blood-red hair and dark eyes. There were some purple tattoos on his face, and when the man was snarling at him, he could see a missing tooth. Brad, normally I'm all business, but you've pissed me off. He drew a large-looking curved knife. I'm going to enjoy this. Naruto closed his eyes, feeling the tears fall. He waited for the man to get over to him. It was like an eternity waiting for the man to kill him. He felt the pain of his body and wondered if it would hurt worse than this. Dynamic entry. Naruto's eyes snapped open as the bad man was dropped and kicked out of nowhere by Guy. Naruto watched with wide eyes as Guy went on to fight the ninja. He moved very fast, and the bad ninja tried to attack him with the knife. Guy dodged a bit to the right, making the blade pass through where his head had just been. Now, while inside his opponent's personal space, he gripped the wrist. He twisted, making his enemy cry out in pain, dropping the weapon. Guy gave a palm strike to the man's chest, sending him back. I have no idea what kind of person would kill and harm a little innocent child, but you are definitely a very youthful person. The other ninja didn't bother to say anything. He made a few hand signs and then slammed his hands together. Guy saw an electrical current running over his hands as his foe charged forward, trying to strike at Guy. Guy could feel the electrical energy coming off the hands, even when they weren't touching his body. He could feel the hairs on his body stand up, and he knew that getting hit by just one of those wouldn't be a good thing for him. A glancing blow to his arm was proof, as he cried out in pain and felt his arm got slightly numb. The assault continued, but Guy managed to keep one step ahead of the larger and thankfully slower enemy. The man was getting very frustrated with this. He went for a large right hook, and Guy jumped up and over with a flip. As he was in mid-air, Guy sent the back of the heel of his fight foot into the back of the man's skull. The blow was enough to daze him, and when he turned around feeling the world spinning, he got one of Guy's feet to his face. He flew through the air and landed and didn't get back up. Naruto had watched it all with wide childlike eyes. He had never actually seen ninjas battle before, and he had to admit, he thought Guy had to be almost as strong as his dad. Anbu team. Kakashi and his squad had been traveling for days as they were on their way to one of Orochimaru's possible hideouts. The man was a missing nin to be killed on sight, but so far he had always remained several steps ahead of the Leaf Village. It was their hope that he was using the old base of his again, or there were clues to where he was going. Kakashi was thinking about what they would do if they faced him. He was good, but he couldn't take on one of the legendary Sannin. He glanced at the young girl to his right as they made their way through the trees. She seemed to really want to find her old sensei. Although from the killer intent he felt her trying to repress it wasn't for a happy reunion and most likely wanted to rip him a new one. He hoped she could control herself, since going into a battle with emotions like that would get her and others killed. Then again, going into a mission with just logic wasn't the right way either. He remembered how he had focused only on the mission while Obito had gone after Rin. He still wished he could redo that day over again. Maybe they both would be alive today. Kakashi pushed those thoughts away. They were on a mission, and he had to keep focus. After a bit of Kakashi stopped. I think we traveled far enough. I think we needed to rest for a bit. The others looked a bit winded, although Anko looked like she wanted to keep on going. We can be there in a few more hours, she told him. Yes, but it's getting dark, and I don't want to travel into a possible enemy stronghold at night with who knows what traps along the way. Besides, we're tired, hungry, and we're not 100%, he told her in his usual lazy tone. She seemed like she wanted to argue the point, but she seemed to take a moment and jumped down from the tree, still pissed, but seemed to relent. He looked at his two other members of his team. Women, huh? He said, as a joke. The other two shook their heads and jumped down. They set up a small camp with everyone taking turns at watch. Kakashi took the first watch as he pulled off his mask and sat down on a stone resting. He looked up at the stars and his thoughts turned to Naruto and hoped that Guy was taking good care of him. Because if he didn't, he was going to use his Sharingan on the green ninja. He sighed and pulled out his favorite orange book and started to read it. It was hard to find time and places to read his favorite series with Naruto around. About an hour into his watch he heard some moaning and then a small gasp. He looked at the tents, and after a bit Anko came out looking like she had a rough night, and from the looks and sounds of it, a nightmare too. He also was surprised to see her hair down. She looked more feminine like that, more soft in a way. Or it might be the lost look on her face as she sat down across the fire staring into it. "Can't sleep, huh?" he said, not looking up from his book. She just shrugged and muttered something he didn't hear. He thought about what could cause the girl nightmares, but given their lives it was part of the job. It's bad enough living with it when we're awake, but it's when we fall asleep, the point we let our guards down and want nothing but peace that it seems to attack, he said. She looked at him confused. What? Our kind of life is a hard one. We see a lot and experience more than most. When we're awake we try and bury what has harmed us, but when we're asleep, that's when it can attack us at any time. She gave a small grunt looking at the strange Anbu. She was trying to figure this guy out. He didn't look much older than she was, although she was wondering why he was wearing that black mask when he wore that wolf one. Plus his forehead protector was covering one of his eyes, but from the small scar she saw, Anko figured he might be missing an eye. "I don't need anyone's pity," she told him sternly. "Wasn't offering." "Then what?" "Understanding." That threw her for a bit. She had seen the looks about her when she first got back. She hated pity, she wasn't some weak little girl, and hated it when people acted like she was around her. "What would you know about anything?" she muttered. "I know loss and loneliness." She cast him a look. "How so?" Kakashi sighed, trying to concentrate on his book, but the memories that were coming up weren't easy. "I lost my parents when I was young, my father killed himself in shame, my only 2 friends are dead, my sensei who was like a father to me is dead. All my precious people are gone except for one, and I don't ever want to lose him." Anko didn't know what to say to that. Her parents had died when she was young on missions, she really didn't have many friends. Although this Kurenai woman she had been teamed up with for her Chunin exam was nice and the only person she kept in touch with. But by the sounds of it, this guy had a rough life, maybe that was why he hid his face from the world. "So who is this person?" "My son," he told her. "You got a kid? But you don't look that much older than I do," she said, shocked. "Adopted, he lost his parents the night the Nine Tails attacked. I know what it's like to grow up alone, so I took him in. At first I was more like a guardian, but over the years I think of him more like my own son now." Kakashi meant the words. Naruto was the most precious person in the world to him, he had no doubt about it. Anko didn't know what else to say, so she just looked into the fire. After a moment she looked at him reading one of those adult books that she had heard about. She was surprised he was reading that. "Please tell me you don't keep those in your home," she smirked, pointing at the book. "It's perfectly good literature." He ignored her snorts at that comment. "Besides, I locked them up, so he never finds them." Anko actually broke a small smile at that. "You're a strange one, you know I don't even know your name," Kakashi said, looking at her with a small smile. Normally Anbu don't just throw out their names, which kind of defeats the purpose of the masks, but he didn't mind. The name registered in Anko's mind as her eyes widened. She knew only one ninja named Kakashi that was said to hide his face from the world, and by the fact he was covering one of his eyes only led to one conclusion: Sharingan Kakashi, the copy nin. He sighed at that. He really didn't like having a large reputation. It wasn't ego, it was just the way people acted around him because of it. He had enough of that, as a child being the son of the White Fang, as a kid. Odd how no one even remembered that old name these days. They just focused on what he had done. It nearly made him laugh too. As a kid he vowed to get out of his father's shadow, and he had. Barely anyone remembered the White Fang, which kind of hurt. He loved his father, and although many thought the end of his father's life was a big disgrace, he deserved better than to be forgotten. Anko meanwhile shook her head as she looked up into the night sky. So here she was with the famous copy nin of their village. She had heard some younger Kunoichi talk about him, or maybe swoon over him. Everyone wondered what was under that mask, and others thought he was so mysterious and tried to figure him out. It nearly made Anko laugh at how here she was with him and had most likely just learned more about him than any of those so-called fangirls learned in years. She looked at the man, trying to wonder how he was raising a son all his own. Since he never mentioned a woman in his life, she guessed he was single at least. That was something those girls would be pleased to hear. Hell, even Kurenai had gossiped about him a few times. At any rate, when she got back she could have some fun with this. There were all kinds of women that would pay to learn anything about him. She smiled, her nightmare forgotten, and then she frowned, glancing at him. Did he plan on making her better? He just sat there reading one of those books, looking dead to the world. She figured he didn't plan anything and decided to try and get some more sleep. Kakashi, however, watched her from the corner of his eye and smiled. He was glad that he could help her out. There was just something about her, that pain of being totally alone in life, that made him want to help her. Maybe because it was Naruto that helped to fill the void in his life, so he wanted to help others who had that same pain. At any rate, he went back to his book. It was getting to a good point, and he wanted to finish before his shift ended. Konoha. Naruto was back in bed. He was still scared to death from that morning, but he was better now that Guy was looking after him. He was holding Mr. Foxy, his favorite toy, the orange fox, in a death grip to his chest. Guy was there in the doorway looking at the young boy. He had been so full of life that morning, and looking at him now was depressing. The 2 ninjas had been captured and sent to interrogation, although he bet that whoever was behind this was already covering their tracks. If the middleman was still alive, he wouldn't be much longer, that person was a loose thread. But this had been the first out in the open assassination attempt of Naruto, whoever was behind this was getting bolder. Guy felt like he personally wanted to punch the man or men behind this until they couldn't be identified. He had only known Naruto for a day, and yet he liked the boy, and looking at him now made him sad and angry. Normally he let things slide, never one to let things bother him that much, but at times like these, they were the exception. He walked into the room and sat down next to Naruto. "Are you okay? When is daddy coming back?" he asked him. Not until a few more days or more, he saw how Naruto held his toy even closer. "But don't worry, I'm here, no one will harm you, as long as Guy Mito is protecting Naruto-kun. I promise you this, or I'll do 5,000 push-ups with lead weights on my back." The young boy looked up at him. "Can you really do that?" "Of course." He flashed a grin at him. "Cool, you must be almost as strong as daddy." "Well, I like to think I can rival him, I may be even stronger." My daddy is the strongest ninja there is." "Well, technically the Hokage is the strongest ninja in the village." "You mean the old man with the robes and funny hat?" Naruto had seen him a few times, in fact he visited Naruto a couple of times a month. He found it strange that he was stronger than his dad. The Hokage is the strongest in the village, and for a good reason. He protects everyone in the village. Naruto, it's his duty to protect everyone under his care, so he has to be strong. Naruto thought about that, he wanted to be as strong as his dad, he wanted to be able to be a great ninja as well. But if the old man was the strongest, then maybe he should be even stronger than him, stronger than anyone, so that he could protect his daddy. He knew that his dad went off on dangerous missions all the time, and he always worried, but if he was stronger then he could look out for his dad. Little did anyone know that night Naruto made a new decision in life that would shape his future and the rest of Konoha. Guy ruffled his hair. "Get some sleep, Naruto, I'll be right here." Naruto nodded his head, feeling a bit better. "Thanks, Guy." Guy smiled at that. He gave a small laugh as Naruto tried to get some sleep, walking to the doorway. Guy, I like tha," he smirked to himself. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time, till then sayonara.